I welcome you all. Today I will take up remaining part of monetary policy and will introduce the concept of fiscal policy, what fiscal policy is. You may recall that in my last lecture I discussed about monetary policy, that is the policy of the Reserve Bank of India or the central bank to control supply of money in the economy. Depending upon the economic condition, the monetary policy can be expansionary, that is, supply of money can be increased, or it may be contractionary, or the supply of money can be contracted. For instance, if the economic condition that prevails is of recession, that is of low demand, high unemployment, and decline in GDP, then RBI can make use of open market operation. It can buy government bonds and pump and inject liquidity in the banking system. Similarly, it can lower the rate of interest, or it can also lower the CRR or SLR ratios. So using one of these methods, RBI can inject more money in the banking system, and that will enable the bank to offer loan at a lower rate of interest, because when supply of anything, given the price of in rate of interest is the price of funds, so if supply of anything increases, the cost of fund goes down. So given the demand. If the opposite is the case, then if the economy is facing a rise in price, that is inflationary condition, the money supply can be reduced. And in order to reduce money supply, the Reserve Bank of India or the central bank can sell government bonds, and that will be subscribed by the banks. That will suck the liquidity from the system, reduce the liquidity. Or it can increase the rate of interest that is charged by the RBI or the central bank on borrowing from commercial bank, or can increase reserve ratio variation, that is CRR or SLR. As I told you in my last lecture, that all these steps are not simultaneously undertaken, because if you undertake all these steps simultaneously, then it will have an extraordinary effect. So that is why, unless the situation is not normal situation, it demands that one should take drastic step. One step, one measure may be sufficient. And as I told you also, that even CRR, SLR reduction or increase is only to the extent of at one go, not more than 0.25, because when the deposits are so huge that it will have the very great effect on the overall availability of money in the banking system. And so that is why these steps all are not taken simultaneously. Now, the idea behind undertaking these is to affect the real variables in the economy, like total demand in the economy and so on. So either in such a situation, if prices are rising for that matter, it may be the case that total demand in the economy is rising. And total demand in the economy is made of the four factors, which we call C plus I plus D plus X minus M, that is the consumption, investment, and the investment and export minus import. The total demand in the economy is so the monetary policy works through the interest rate channel. One of the channels is through interest rate. That when supply of money is increased, then rate of interest comes down. There are other channels as well, but one of the channels through which it causes a effect, transmits the effect, is via interest rate. Because supply of money is increased, cost of fund, that is rate of interest, will go down. Supply of money. So in situation like when RBI want to inject more supply of money in the economy, it follows an expansionary. For example, the CRR, let us say, is reduced. Here it is shown that CRR, that the cash rate, that is cash reserve ratios. Now, because of this thing, what will happen that the rate of interest will fall because other interest rates are also linked to the one rate. You know that if other rates are falling, then it causes a ripple effect in the economy, and accordingly, other interest rate falls. Then, because of the lower interest rate, the cost of borrowing from the bank will go down, and therefore businesses will make investment. They can borrow money and can make investment in the machinery, equipment, plant, and the buildings. And similarly, the consumers may also be encouraged to take loan for consumer durable consumption. You know that if they are buying an automobile or car or other thing, so they can borrow at a lower rate. And that one channel which we will not appreciate to that extent is that in the when rate of interest is decreased, then what happens that the rupee may undergo appreciation. That is the amount, and this will become clear when exchange rate is taken. That is the, for example, the dollar rupee exchange rate is 70 rupee, just an example, $1. Now, because of this lower interest rate, what will happen that the rupee may become, let us say, 68 or 67 rupee, in lesser amount of rupee for $1, that is called appreciation. Why this happened? Because the reason is that the global capital flow moves through those countries which have got higher interest rate. For instance, India has got an interest rate of 10%. Just simple example. US has got 8%. Or let us say 7%. Now, because India, one can get when you make investment 10% rate of interest, whereas in US it may fetch you only 7%. Therefore, when the portfolio investment and other investment, the money may flow to our country because the difference in rate of interest, that is 3%, to take advantage of it. So that is why when money moves from the like dollar, when we convert it into rupee, so it means that there is a demand for the rupee. So rupee will appreciate because of that. And when they convert it, so because of that, the dollar supply will increase. And the rupee supply will decrease because the demand for this will become clear when exchange rate is taken, but it is via exchange rate also it affects it. And because of that, what happened that this propels the total demand, which is made of consumption C, investment, that is I, and it is net export, that is export minus import. So because of that, what happened that import increases the cost of import, because what happens that you have to pay more, rupee appreciate. Rupee you have to pay lower interest rate. And because of that, the net export become positive. So what happens that the total demand in the economy is affected because the opposite will be the effect. I think this point the exchange rate will become clear to you when exchange rate is taken. So for now, just focus on one thing, that when the expansionary monetary policy is followed, then rate of interest goes down. Lower rate of interest encourages more borrowing. That is, maybe the businesses, firms, they may make more investment. Similarly, consumers, they can also take loan at a lower interest rate for consumption purposes, especially consumer durables. So that increases liquidity. Opposite will be the case when the RBI want to control supply of money because major prices may be rising. So the idea is to affect the total demand in the economy, and like now you see that from here to here to here to here. So this effect, then this effect, then this effect, then this effect. So that is why when I told you that when action is taken, and finally when the effect is passed on real variable, that is GDP and other, so there is a lag. RBI reduces the cash reserve ratio, then it affects. And as I told you that in India, at least 2 quarters minimum 6 to 9 months are required for these channel to work out. And in some cases, it is not effective. It is not that RBI will do this thing and the GDP and other will increase like that. Because the willingness of, for example, investment demand, that is, the businesses will borrow money only when they expect that demand will go up. They will not make investment. So that is why their expectation about future demand will make them to whether they are going to make investment in borrow money and make investment or not. So that is why there is a many a slip between cup and lip, and that is why when action is taken and then final effect plays out, so there is a lag, and that is why the monetary policy, in order to be make effective, to work effectively, this lag has to be decreased. That otherwise, and the channel has to be made effective. Now, interest rate, exchange rate, and other channel are also there, but I think that is for advanced level. Asset price channel also is there, but I think it's too early for you to take up to understand this thing, because some part, when you study specialization for international finance, then you will understand it. So, but for the moment, I think that for this basic course, this much is. Now, one thing I would like to point out before I close my discussion on monetary policy, that imagine countries where rate of interest is already very low, like USA and other countries, Japanese economy, where rate of interest is already very low, 1%, 1.5%, or even like that. So in those situations, monetary policy is not effective. When a rate of interest is already low, it works via the change in interest rate, because supply of money is increased, then rate of interest goes down when it is already very low. So that is why there is a concept in economics, but I think that just I will mention that without going into details, that this is called liquidity trap. When rate of interest is already very low, monetary policy becomes ineffective, and it has become ineffective. As a student of economics, we had studied it, but we found that in Japanese economy, their rate of interest is less than 1%. So you cannot, give loans and other things at free, without charging any rate of interest. So that is why monetary policy has to work through other policy, like fiscal policy. And this happened in financial crisis of 2008, when the US government was trying to come out of the crisis, but rate of interest in already was very low, because rate of inflation is very low in those countries. So one linkage between interest rate and interest rate is inflation. They already low, so you cannot reduce it further. Then the monetary policy, some innovative method was used, which is known as quantitative easing, and I think that hardly required to elaborate. Quantitative easing, that they use in open market operation, not only the government, they purchase government bonds, they purchase other private securities as well. Normally, what happens that government purchases only government securities or sells government securities. So they in massive infusion of supply of money in the economy was needed. Therefore, they went beyond the traditional methods, and they use it. So the point here is that the monetary policy, when rate in some countries where rate of interest is already very low, monetary policy may not. That is why fiscal policy may be effective. So let me introduce the concept of fiscal policy, what fiscal policy is. And but before that, some background of fiscal policy and how fiscal policy got developed. You know that all of you may be aware of the Great Depression of 1930s. Great Depression 1930s, recession is a condition, economic condition, where there is low demand, high unemployment. And this condition may last for 2 to 10 years. Okay. You will study business cycles after this. But depression is a period of severe recession, lasting for decades. The depression of 1930s, after the First World War and its aftermath, it lasted for 3 decades. I knew that economic policies are governed by the prevailing economic thinking at that time. So the period was, a decade, 1 decade, 2 decade, 3 decade. All the economies of the world, were facing the problem of high unemployment, falling GDP, piling inventories, and so on and so on. So that is why the economies were not, getting revived, back on rail. So the prevailing economic thinking at that time was that government should not intervene in the economy by making expenditure, like let market forces to work itself out. In government intervention, it was pointed out that will make the matter worse because there are inherent tendencies in the economy to bring back economy to a revival path. So, and the prevailing thinking was a law which was known as Say's law of market, known after, named after French economist J.B. Say, who the proposition was that supply creates its own demand. That if goods are produced, supply is then people will be employed. When people will be employed, they will get income. When they get income, they will demand goods, and then cycle will be created. So that is why the government should not. Uh, so what happened that the non-intervention of the government and in the economy, and it was pointed out that let us wait for some time, and then the economy, there are built-in stabilizers in the economy that will, the this period will be over soon. But there was no ray of hope inside for the revival of the economy, and then at that time, a famous economist John Maynard Keynes came on the scene. And Keynes pointed out that the problem of the economy, the world economy, is not a lack of demand, because there is no demand in the economy. Therefore, the economies are not getting back to health. So he propounded the idea that government should make massive public expenditure, like, let us say employment guarantee scheme in India, America, and all that, where you employ people and ask them, even if their roads are not to be built, there is no worthwhile work, employ them, ask them to dig holes, and then if there is no worthwhile, ask them to fill up only and give them money. When they get money, they will go in the market and demand goods and services. And when they demand goods and services, the unsold goods will be sold off. Because what has happened that in depression of 19, the businesses found that there were inventories, unsold goods. Nobody was buying it because people were, whatever money they have, they were already unemployed. They thought that let us save it. We should not spend it because the future was very bleak. So that is why Keynes pointed out this idea that we should intervene. A government should intervene the economy by managing the economy. And therefore, he pointed out that the problem of deficiency of demand, and we should take care of demand as it will take care of supply. And since then, the idea of Keynes has gained currency, and that is the total demand in the economy, for example, is made of C plus I plus G plus X minus M. That is consumer spending. When government makes expenditure, purchase, then people will get income, and if the others are not, for example, C plus I, these things are affected. So government should spend money. Government is, and because of that, a chain effect will be created, which is known as which I explained to you, multiply and that economy. So, and Keynes, that the ideas of Keynes are, has brought about a sea change in economic thinking, and his influence on economic thinking is unparalleled in the history, in annals of economic history. So the idea, this was the man, French economist J.B. Say, and the debate, war of ideas, and Say's law of market was that, as I told you, that one should not intervene in the economy. So it can be depicted as one of the classical economy. In case of broken glass, do nothing, it will fix itself. It means that in economy, do nothing. There are inherent tendencies of the economy which will bring back economy to the rails. That is the revival path. So supply creates demand. This was the proposition of that Say. And whereas Keynesian economics is that in case of nothing to do, break glass and then sweep up broken glass. And if there is no worthwhile activity to do, then break the glass or employ people who, sweep up the glass. This idea was suggested when the economy of US was not getting revived. Because in road, what has happened that in US and other, all the roads have been built already and they are world-class road, other thing. So there is not much infrastructure development. So it was suggested that in order to revive, that government should make investments, spend in infrastructure, dismantle something and then put money in the hands of people, and therefore, and it was like idea that giving cash voucher to the people and go in the market, and and when they get money they will go. So the idea of Keynes, so this is a simplified version. So that is, Keynes said that I beg supply does not, it is an interaction and sometimes the opposite true. So, and although the idea of non-interference lies fair, it means that it might be applicable. Please remember that he famously remarked that we are all dead in the long run. He said that this idea may be that you should not intervene and the economy will be brought back to health. May be true for the, but in the short run, the problem is of lack of demand. And there was an economist at Harvard, his name was William Taussig, who would come on radio every day and ask people to consume, not to save. Because people were very careful, they were not spending money, and therefore the economy was not getting back to. So the fiscal policy has gained currency. That is, the use of a fiscal policy is the use of government taxation and expenditure. That if you are facing this situation, government should reduce taxes and increase government expenditure so that total demand in the economy is augmented, and because of that. Now, this was the background about the development of fiscal policy, but the details I will take next week because I will be out of the station from tomorrow onward, and Dr. Tariq Aziz will engage class. And but the remaining part of fiscal policy, I have just provided introduction. All the details I will take up when I join the department next week. So Dr. Tariq Aziz will take up the remaining, that is the 5th unit and other part there in the 3 lectures this week. And so if you have any question, I can entertain before I close. Okay, he will share the link with you for the class. My link will not be applicable. You know that you will be provided a different link by today.
Okay. Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay, note down your question. We'll meet. We'll discuss. I'll start with fiscal policy, and we'll.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Sure, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.